Get out of the shot! My mother-in-law hissed through her teeth as I stepped between my sister-in-law's camera and my 7-year-old daughter, who was standing in the corner of the living room with tears streaming silently down her face. We were in the middle of something. I didn't move. My sister-in-law lowered her phone an inch, her perfectly contoured face twisting into something ugly. Are you serious right now? I had the perfect angle. Behind me, my daughter pressed her face into the back of my sweater. I could feel her shaking. It was supposed to be a Christmas celebration. My mother-in-law had been planning it for 3 months, sending color-coordinated decoration schemes to the family group chat and reminding everyone twice a week about the dress code. Festive but elegant. No jeans. No exceptions. My daughter Emma had worn her favorite red velvet dress with the white lace collar that she had picked out herself in October, holding it up to her chest in the store and spinning in a circle, asking me if she looked like a Christmas angel. She had looked exactly like one. I had spent most of the afternoon in the kitchen helping prepare the holiday spread, keeping half an eye on Emma through the pass-through window as she sat quietly at the coffee table, drawing in the small sketchbook she always carried with her. She was a shy kid, the kind who needed time to warm up to people, the kind who drew horses and stars and little scenes from books she had read. She was not the kind of kid who liked being on camera. Everyone in the family knew that. I had said it out loud at least a dozen times over the years. My sister-in-law had known it too. She just hadn't cared. I had stepped away from the kitchen to check on the rolls when I heard it. Not a crash, not a scream, but something quieter and more unsettling. A group of people laughing at something that wasn't funny, the specific kind of laughter that has a target. I came around the corner into the living room and saw my sister-in-law crouched in front of Emma with her phone aimed directly at my daughter's face. She had apparently taken Emma's sketchbook, was holding it just out of Emma's reach, and was reading from it in an exaggerated, mocking voice for her audience. "Listen to this, guys," my sister-in-law said to the camera, barely glancing up. She wrote a whole story about a unicorn who doesn't have any friends. It's literally the most depressing thing I've ever read. She's 7. Emma was reaching for the book, saying, "Please, please give it back," her voice getting thinner with each please, her eyes going glassy. My father-in-law was chuckling from his armchair. My mother-in-law was standing near the fireplace with her wine glass, watching with an amused expression. 3 cousins were filming on their own phones. "Isn't it kind of sad?" my sister-in-law continued, tilting the sketchbook toward the camera. "Like, what kind of little kid writes about a lonely unicorn? She must be projecting." More laughter. I crossed the room. I put my hand over my sister-in-law's phone and pushed it firmly down toward the floor. Not violent, but not gentle either. Deliberate. "Give Emma her book back," I said. My sister-in-law snatched her hand away from me like I had burned her. "What is your problem?" "Her book. Now." She stared at me for 2 seconds, then threw the sketchbook onto the cushion next to Emma with the kind of careless toss that made clear it meant nothing to her. Emma grabbed it and held it against her chest. "You just killed my entire bit," my sister-in-law said, her voice rising. "I had 2,000 people watching that live." "Good," I said. My mother-in-law set her wine glass down on the mantel. She walked over with the measured, heels-on-hardwood pace she used when she was about to make a point. She didn't look at Emma. She didn't look at the sketchbook, or her daughter, or anything that had just happened. She looked directly at me, and her expression was one I had seen before, patient and contemptuous in equal measure. "She was just having fun," she said, keeping her voice low. "The way people do when they want to signal that they're being reasonable and you're the one making a scene. It was a little joke. Emma is fine." I turned to look at Emma. She was not fine. She was sitting on the edge of the couch cushion, knees pressed together, sketchbook clutched in both hands, and she was doing that thing she did when she was trying very hard not to cry in public, that terrible controlled stillness that broke my heart every time I saw it. "She's clearly not fine," I said, "because you're making it into a whole production." My mother-in-law gestured vaguely at the room, at the watching cousins, at my sister-in-law who was already pulling up her phone again. "Emma was fine, until you came in here like the world was ending. You're teaching her to be fragile." "She's 7. I was doing content," my sister-in-law cut in. "People love kid content. It wasn't mean. It was cute. You're the one who made it weird." I looked around the room the way you do when you're still, on some level, expecting someone to step forward. I looked at my father-in-law, who had gone back to looking at his phone. I looked at the cousins, who were now murmuring to each other. I looked at my husband's aunt, who was arranging the dessert tray on the sideboard, and deliberately not making eye contact with anyone. Nobody moved. "You need to apologize to your sister," my mother-in-law said. And she meant me. She meant I needed to apologize to my sister-in-law. "You grabbed her phone. You humiliated her in front of her audience. She works hard on her platform, and you treated her like a child." I looked at her. "If you can't respect the way this family operates," she continued, lowering her voice even further, "then maybe you should take Emma home and both of you can cool down. When you're ready to act like an adult and rejoin us, dinner will be on the table." She picked up her wine glass and walked back to the fireplace. That was it. That was the whole conversation. My daughter had been publicly mocked, her private writing read aloud for strangers on the internet, her shyness used as a punchline, and the resolution my mother-in-law had arrived at was that I should apologize and go sit in another room until I had composed myself. I took Emma's hand. She came with me immediately. Without a word, without looking back at any of them, we got her coat from the closet by the front door. I texted my husband, who had stepped outside 20 minutes earlier to take a work call, that we were leaving and he could get a ride home or call me. I didn't explain. I figured he would walk back in and piece it together from the charged atmosphere and his sister's expression. We walked to the car. The cold air hit us both, and Emma stopped on the front step, tilted her face up toward the sky, the way she did sometimes, just breathing. I buckled her into the back seat. I got into the driver's seat. I sat there for a moment with my hands on the wheel, the engine running, the heater starting to push warmth into the car. We were almost to the highway when Emma spoke. "Mommy." "Yeah, baby." She was quiet for a moment. In the rearview mirror, I could see her looking out the window, her sketchbook in her lap, her fingers tracing the cover. "Is my story bad?" she asked. "No, sweetheart. Your story is wonderful." She said it was sad. She said it was depressing. A pause. She said kids like me don't have friends. "Kids like you are the best kind of people," I said. And I meant it, and it wasn't enough. Another silence. "Why did everyone laugh?" Emma asked. Her voice was very small, the kind of small that has nothing to do with volume. "I don't understand what was funny." I didn't answer right away, because I didn't trust my voice. "Was I funny?" she asked. "Is that why they laughed?" "No." I took a breath. They were wrong to laugh. What happened was not funny, and it was not okay, and you didn't do anything wrong. I want you to hear that. She nodded slowly, like she was filing it somewhere. Then she looked back out the window. "Grandma laughed too," she said softly. I saw her. That sentence sat in the car with us for the rest of the drive. I had known, somewhere in the background of my awareness, that my in-laws were difficult. I had cataloged the moments over the years. The way my mother-in-law rearranged everything I set on her kitchen counter, the way my sister-in-law talked over me at every holiday meal, the way my father-in-law called me by the wrong name for the first 18 months of my marriage and claimed it was an accident. I had filed these things away and told myself it was just personality, it was just the way some families are. It was better to keep the peace for everyone's sake, including Emma's, who deserved a relationship with her grandparents. I had brought my daughter into that house every holiday for 5 years and told myself I was giving her something. I pulled into our driveway and sat in the dark car for a long moment after Emma had gone inside. My phone was already buzzing. I looked at the screen. My mother-in-law. "Your behavior tonight was embarrassing, and I hope you understand how much damage you've done to this family." My sister-in-law. "I lost 400 followers because you interrupted my live. You owe me an apology, and honestly, you owe me for the engagement I lost." That stream was monetized. My mother-in-law, again. "Your husband is mortified. He agrees with me that you overreacted. We expect a call tomorrow." My sister-in-law. "I posted a clip. Just so you know, people deserve to see what you did." I went inside. I helped Emma wash her face and change into her pajamas. I sat on the edge of her bed and read to her until her breathing slowed and her eyes stopped fighting, and she was asleep with the sketchbook on the nightstand next to her, one hand resting on the cover. I went to the living room. My husband had come home at some point, and he was sitting at the kitchen table with his phone face down and his jaw tight. "My mom called me," he said. "I know. She said you made a scene. Your sister read Emma's private writing aloud on a live stream and called our daughter sad and friendless. In front of your whole family. Who laughed? I said it flatly, without drama. I stepped in. That was the scene. He was quiet. Emma asked me tonight why everyone laughed at her, I said. She's 7. I don't know how to answer that. He rubbed the back of his neck. My sister didn't mean anything by it. She does stuff like that for content. She doesn't think. That's not the point. I know. He said it quietly, and I believed that he meant it, and I also knew that by tomorrow morning he would have had 4 calls from his mother, and his position would have shifted by degrees, the way it always did. That was a problem for tomorrow. I went to bed. I lay in the dark and listened to my husband eventually come upstairs and get into bed beside me. And I thought about Emma's face in the rearview mirror, and about the word Grandma laughed, and about 5 years of keeping the peace. My phone buzzed one more time on the nightstand. My sister-in-law had posted the clip. Not the part where she was holding my daughter's sketchbook. Not the part where Emma was reaching for it and saying, please. She had posted only the part where I pushed the phone down and told her to give the book back, and she had captioned it, "My sister-in-law assaulted me at Christmas dinner because she can't handle me having a career. Toxic people are everywhere, even in your own family. Stay safe out there." The comments were already rolling. I turned the phone face down and stared at the ceiling for a long time. Around 2 a.m, I got up. I wasn't going to sleep. My brain was running the same loop it always ran when I was angry and helpless. The what-ifs. The things I should have said. The things I should have done years ago. The calculations about what it would cost to fight back versus what it would cost to absorb it the way I always had. I went to the small office we kept off the hallway, mostly used for storage, and sat down at the desk to pay some bills I'd been putting off. Something to do with my hands. I moved a stack of folders off the keyboard, and a large brown envelope slid off the corner of the desk and hit the floor. I picked it up. It was from a property management company. The return address made something flicker in the back of my mind. 4 years ago, my mother-in-law had come to me with a problem. Not to her son, not to the rest of the family. To me, specifically, because I was the one she knew had good credit. The one who had worked steadily since college. The one who had never bounced a check or carried revolving debt. Her boutique, a home decor shop she had run for 8 years out of a rented storefront downtown, was facing a crisis. The building had sold to a new owner who was raising the rent by 40%. She couldn't afford to stay. But the shop was her identity. The thing she talked about at every dinner. The physical proof of her taste and status in her social circle. She had come to me in tears. She had held my hands at this same desk. And I, who had recently inherited a small commercial building from my grandmother, a squat, unremarkable, 2-story, on a good street downtown that my grandmother had bought in the 1980s and held onto through sheer stubbornness, had said yes when my mother-in-law asked if she could move her boutique into the ground floor. I charged her rent that was well below market because she was family and because I wanted to be good to the people my husband loved. We signed a lease agreement. It was a 3-year term with the option to renew. We had shaken hands over it, and my mother-in-law had called me generous and told my husband he had married well, which was one of the nicest things she had ever said to me. That was 4 years ago. I opened the envelope in my hands. It was a renewal notice that my property manager had sent me. Or rather, a reminder that the renewed lease period was itself now approaching its end. I stared at the dates. Then I got up, found the original lease document in the back of the filing cabinet, and spread it open on the desk under the lamp. The original 3-year term had ended. We had done a 1-year renewal verbally, which my property manager had documented in a letter both parties signed. That extension had ended 4 months ago. 4 months ago. I sat back. I had been so busy, so absorbed in Emma's school year and the day-to-day of our life, that I had let the paperwork slide. My property manager had sent reminders, apparently, which I had mentally filed under things to get to. My mother-in-law had continued depositing her monthly rent automatically, and I had continued receiving it without thinking about what it meant legally. What it meant legally was that she had been occupying my property on a month-to-month holdover basis. What it meant legally was that I was the landlord, and she was a tenant with no signed lease, and I had the right under state law to terminate a month-to-month tenancy with proper written notice. I opened my laptop. I read the relevant statutes slowly and carefully. Twice. Then I read them a 3rd time. Then I closed the laptop and sat in the quiet, dark office for a very long time. The boutique was not just a shop. It was the centerpiece of my mother-in-law's social identity. She hosted events there. She had a small, loyal clientele she treated like an inner circle. My sister-in-law used the back room as a filming location for her content, which explained the professional lighting rigs I had seen in photos, the aesthetic shelving, the curated backdrop. Losing the space would not just hurt them financially, it would dismantle the carefully maintained image they had built. I thought about Emma asking why everyone laughed. I thought about my mother-in-law walking back to the fireplace with her wine glass. I thought about 5 years of bending, adjusting, absorbing, excusing. I did not make any decisions that night. I went back to bed, and I lay there until the alarm went off, and I got up and made breakfast and walked Emma to school and told her she was brave and creative and that her story about the lonely unicorn was actually a beautiful story about learning to be your own best friend. Then I came home and called a real estate attorney. I explained the situation: inherited commercial property, below-market tenant, expired lease, month-to-month holdover. The attorney walked me through my options in about 15 minutes. They were clear. They were entirely in my favor. "Do you want to relet to the current tenant at market rate?" the attorney asked, "or are you looking to vacate the space?" I thought about it. "I'd like to explore selling the building," I said. "But first I need to issue a notice to vacate. 30 days, as required. We can prepare that today if you'd like." "Please," I said. I also called my bank that afternoon and suspended the automatic transfer from my mother-in-law's account. Accepting further rent would strengthen any argument she might make about an implied renewal. My attorney had been very clear on that point. The notice was served by a process server 2 days later, on a Thursday morning. I know exactly when it arrived because my phone started ringing at 10:47 a.m. and did not stop for the rest of the day. I was at work. I let everything go to voicemail. My mother-in-law, first message. Confused, almost polite, clearly thinking there had been some administrative error. "There seems to be some kind of mix-up. A man came to the boutique this morning with a legal notice. Obviously, this is a mistake. Call me when you get a chance." My mother-in-law, second message, no longer confused. "I don't know what you think you're doing, but this is absolutely unacceptable. That shop is my livelihood. I have been paying you faithfully for 4 years, and you don't have the right to do this. My son will be calling you." My sister-in-law, "Are you out of your mind? My entire studio setup is in that back room. I have brand partnerships. I have a ring light that cost $800. You cannot do this." My mother-in-law, third message, "Whatever you think I did to deserve this, you are punishing the wrong person. Emma is fine. Children bounce back. What you are doing right now is vindictive and cruel, and I will fight you in court if I have to." My husband called 3 times. I texted him, "I'll explain everything tonight. I love you. Please don't call them back on my behalf." He did not respond for several hours. Then he sent, "Okay." That evening, I sat with him at the kitchen table after Emma was in bed, and I laid out everything. The lease, the dates, the legal standing, the attorney's assessment. I did not present it as an argument. I laid it out the way you lay out facts. And I waited. He was quiet for a long time. "You own the building," he said finally. "Yes." "You've owned it this whole time." "Yes." "And they've been renting from you." "Below market." "I did it to help them." He was quiet again. "I'm not doing this to hurt your family," I said. "I'm doing it because I needed to do something that wasn't absorbing it. I'm tired of absorbing it. I've been absorbing it for 5 years, and it got us to a Christmas party where our daughter sat in a corner crying while your mother stood at the fireplace with her wine and laughed. He didn't have anything to say to that. I don't want to blow up your relationship with them," I said. "But I am also not going to pretend that what happened to Emma was acceptable, and I am not going to let them act like I'm the problem because I stepped in." He nodded slowly. "I need you to decide what you want," I said. "But whatever you decide, I'm not withdrawing the notice." He sat with that for a long time. Then he got up, refilled his coffee, and came back to the table. "I'll call my mom tomorrow," he said. "I'll tell her I'm not getting involved in the legal piece. That's between you and her." It wasn't everything I wanted from him, but it was more than I expected. The next several weeks were a storm of legal correspondence, threatening texts, and one certified letter from an attorney my mother-in-law had retained, which turned out to contain a claim that the original lease agreement implied a right of indefinite renewal. My attorney responded with the actual text of the document, which contained no such provision, and the opposing attorney went quiet. My sister-in-law posted 3 videos about the situation. She was careful in them, calling me someone in my family and alluding to betrayal and jealousy without using my name. Her comments filled with supporters who did not know the full story, which was exactly what she intended. I did not respond publicly. On the advice of my attorney, I said nothing on social media at all. What I did do, on a quiet Sunday morning, was write a detailed, factual account of what had happened at the Christmas party and send it, along with a screenshot of the livestream clip my sister-in-law had posted, to a family law attorney who handled defamation matters. I wanted it on record. I wanted documentation that existed somewhere outside of my own memory. I also did something I should have done years earlier. I made an appointment with a therapist. The building sold in 6 weeks. A young couple who wanted to open a restaurant made an offer that came in over asking. The closing date was set for mid-February. The vacate deadline had been January 15th. On January 16th, I drove past the boutique on my way home from the grocery store. The windows were dark. There was a closed sign on the door and masking tape X'd across the display window, the way movers tape glass before transport. The shelving was gone. The sign above the door, the elegant one in script lettering that my mother-in-law had paid a local artist to paint, was gone too, leaving a clean rectangle of lighter-colored brick behind it like a ghost. I didn't stop. I kept driving. When I got home, Emma was at the kitchen table working on a new story in her sketchbook. She had started a fresh one, she told me, about a unicorn who finds a hidden valley where all the other quiet animals live. She turned the pages to show me her illustrations. Careful pencil drawings of the valley, the animals, the way the light came through the trees. "It's beautiful," I said. "The unicorn is still a little scared," Emma said, tapping a panel where the unicorn stood at the edge of the valley looking in. "But she's going to go inside. I just haven't drawn that part yet." I sat down next to her at the table. "What do you think she'll find when she does?" I asked. Emma considered this with the seriousness she brought to all important questions. "I think she'll find out it was safe the whole time," she said. She was just too scared to check. We sat together at the table, while the late afternoon light moved across the kitchen floor, and I watched my daughter draw the unicorn's first step into the valley, one careful pencil line at a time. My phone was in my pocket. It did not buzz. The legal matter was handled and ongoing, nothing that needed my attention tonight. My sister-in-law's last video had gotten fewer views than the ones before it. The story was losing oxygen. I had not spoken to my mother-in-law since the Christmas party, and I had no plans to change that in the near future. I had stopped rehearsing apologies I didn't owe. I had stopped calculating what it would cost me to keep the peace versus what it was already costing me to try. The equity from the building sale was sitting in an account I had opened in my own name. I had already started looking at houses in a school district where nobody knew us, where Emma could start 4th grade fresh, where the commute was manageable and the yards were big enough for a dog, which Emma had been asking about since she was 4. I pulled out my phone and opened the real estate app. Outside the kitchen window, the light was going golden, the way it does in January when the sun sits low and everything it touches looks like it's been saved just in time. I started scrolling through listings,